Thursday was unusually quiet. I love such days at the Phoenix. When the flow of guests is even, there is no fuss, and orders are filled with clockwork precision. My daily check of the kitchen went without a hitch. Wilfred was in control, as always, and the new sauces for the evening menu turned out exactly as we'd planned. "Irma, try this one." Wilfred handed me a small spoonful of tangy ginger sauce. "Just a little more maple syrup, I think, and it'll be perfect with the duck breast." I slowly tasted the flavor, closing my eyes. Wilfred was right, as usual. When I opened the restaurant a year and a half ago, having him as chef was the best decision I ever made. I agree, literally a couple drops, and you can try it today with the seasonal menu. I loved that Phoenix was slowly finding its identity. The small restaurant in downtown St. Joseph, with an interior that combined rough brick walls and warm wood, had become my real home, a home my parents didn't know about. Officially, for Arthur and Doris Grin, their daughter Irma was in her 5th year as a cashier at the Fresh Choice supermarket on the outskirts of town. "At least there's some stability in your messy life," my mother would say whenever I arrived for the obligatory Sunday lunches once a month. I didn't dissuade them, realizing that news of my own business would lead to either endless advice and intervention or predictions of imminent failure. Either would be unbearable. "Irma, the Montgomerys at table 6 are asking for the bill." Ivan, my head waiter, peered into the kitchen. "Also, we have new guests, a big table for 8. Some kind of birthday party, I think." "Okay, put them in the far corner by the panoramic window." I fixed the collar of my dark blue shirt. "Offer seasonal appetizers on the house." I peered into the room through the small window in the kitchen door and froze. At the large oak table, my parents and all of my distant relatives were seated at the table, discussing something loudly. All the distant relatives I hadn't seen in 5 years. Aunt Marge and her husband, Uncle Gordon, Cousin Tabitha, and some vaguely familiar people. No, no, no. I felt the blood drain from my face. Not tonight, not here. "What's wrong?" Wilfred took his eyes off the stove. "My parents." I leaned against the cold steel surface of the cutting table. "They're here. With the family." Wilfred knew my story. So did everyone who'd worked at the Phoenix since it opened. I didn't make a secret of my complicated relationship with my family, though I didn't flaunt it. "Oh," was all he said. "Do they know?" "Of course not." I laughed nervously. "They think I'm still punching checks at the supermarket." Ivan returned with a puzzled look. "Irma, these guests are rather demanding." He struggled for words. The man immediately said that the menu was too pretentious and the prices overpriced. The woman looked around the room and said that we were, quote, "too much of a show-off for a provincial town." "Just an ordinary day in paradise," I muttered. My father never paid more than $20 for dinner and considered it a waste. How should we proceed? Ivan was unfailingly tactful. Another reason I valued him as head waiter. I took a deep breath, trying to collect my thoughts. We could hide in the office and wait it out. My parents weren't likely to stay longer than 2 hours. My father always got nervous if the meal dragged on, thinking every extra minute was a waste of money. "I'll stay here," I decided. "Take care of them like regular guests. Just, don't mention me, okay?" Ivan nodded and went back into the hall. Through the small window, I watched him smile professionally, handing out menus and explaining the concept of the Phoenix. Mother, as always, kept her back unnaturally straight, as if she'd swallowed a mop. My father, gray-haired and still lean, wrinkled his nose as he studied the wine list. Today was his 62nd birthday, I remembered, having sent him a card a week ago with a short congratulatory note. $50 for a bottle of wine? My father's voice echoed throughout the room. "Are they crazy? The same thing at the supermarket costs $15. I cringed. Of course, he had no idea about aging, grape varieties, and terroir. For him, wine fell into 2 categories, red and white, cheap, and a broad daylight robbery. I spent the next 40 minutes in the kitchen, looking out into the hall and listening to Ivan's reports. My father ordered the cheapest dish, chicken noodle soup. My mother chose a salad, because I'm watching my figure, and the rest of us, apparently out of solidarity, didn't waste money either. Ivan served them masterfully, without showing irritation. though I could see his cheekbones tensing when Aunt Marge asked for the third time for just a little more salt. This restaurant is clearly skimping on the spices. They're asking for the manager. Ivan reappeared in the kitchen, his usually impassive face expressing alarm. Mr. Grin wasn't happy with his steak. I groaned. It was clear as day. My father had decided to find an excuse not to pay the full amount. It's his favorite trick in every establishment. Let Carla handle it. I called out the name of our evening receptionist. She tried. Ivan shook his head. But he insists on meeting with the in charge. He says the meat is rubbery and probably stale. I knew the dish. Medium rare ribeye steak with a red wine and rosemary sauce. One of our specialties. Wilfred personally oversaw the quality of the meat from the local farmers. Irma, Wilfred stepped away from the stove. I can come out and explain the technology. No, I straightened up resolutely. I'll do it myself. After all, I was going to run into my parents at my restaurant sooner or later. I just hoped it would happen when I was mentally ready. I adjusted my apron with the Phoenix logo embroidered on it, pulled up my sleeves, and pushed open the door to the lounge. Table 8, where my family was seated, was buzzing like a disturbed beehive. My father, red with anger or wine, was poking at the steak with his fork. The mother pressed her lips together with a, "I told you I shouldn't have come here" expression. The rest of the family looked confused, except for Tabitha, who was staring absently at her phone. "Good evening." I approached the table with my most professional smile. "I heard you had some questions about Irma?" My mother jumped up so sharply that she nearly knocked over her water glass. "What are you doing here?" The father froze with his fork in the air, blinking confusedly. I work here," I said, deciding not to reveal all my cards yet. "You do?" My mother gritted her teeth like a toothache. "What about the supermarket? Did you change places again? Jesus, Irma, you're 27 years old. You've got to make up your mind." I felt myself blushing. It was an old habit I couldn't break in front of my parents. All my childhood and adolescence, I was taught to think that I wasn't trying hard enough, wasn't constant enough, wasn't everything. "Doris, don't start." My father put down his fork. "Though I agree. What kind of job is that? Waitressing? With your education?" My education was limited to 2 community college courses, which I dropped when I realized I wanted to go into the restaurant business. My parents never forgave me for that betrayal, especially when their friends were bragging about kids with degrees from prestigious universities. "Arthur, leave the girl alone," Aunt Marge intervened, the only one who sometimes took my side. "After all, at least she's working." "Yes, she does," my mother snorted. "Serving plates. It's a wonderful career." I noticed the other diners at the neighboring tables tense up. A scandal in a small restaurant was the perfect entertainment for a boring Thursday. Except this restaurant was where I spent most of my time, putting my heart into every detail. "Mom, Dad," I tried to keep my voice down. "Let's talk about this later. This is neither the time nor the place." "No time?" Dad raised his voice. "I think it's the right time. Pack your things and let's get out of here. This is just embarrassing." "What?" I was stunned at the insolence. "You heard me." My mother got up from the table. "We didn't raise you to serve people. What will the Petersons say? What about the McBrides? Dr. McBride's daughter, by the way, is already head of the clinic." I saw Ivan coming toward us, ready to intervene. Behind him loomed Carla with a worried look on her face. The other waiters slowed down as they watched the drama unfold. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, feeling that familiar mix of anger and helplessness building up inside me. "I'm at work." "Exactly!" Dad pounded his fist on the table. "You're at a job that's an embarrassment to this family. You need to pack your bags right now. Leave this family party." "Family party?" I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "This is a restaurant, Dad. People come here to eat, not make a scene." "Don't you dare talk to me like that!" My father stood up, hovering over me. "As long as you're living under my roof." "I haven't lived under your roof for 7 years," I said through gritted teeth. "It doesn't matter." My mother grabbed her purse. "You're still part of the Grin family, and we're not going to let you dishonor our family name by serving—" "I apologize." Ivan's voice came from beside me, calm and confident. but I would ask you not to raise your voice at our employee." "Employee?" My mother looked from me to Ivan and back again. "It doesn't make any difference. Irma is coming with us now. Period." Mrs. Grin. Ivan maintained perfect politeness. "Your daughter is an adult and can make her own decisions." "Don't tell me what to do with my daughter," his mother interrupted him. "Irma, get your things right now." I looked at my parents, feeling strangely distant. It was as if I were watching a scene from a movie in which I was playing the lead role, but I couldn't influence the script. All my childhood they decided for me what clubs to attend, with whom to be friends, where to enter. And now, after all these years, nothing has changed. "Look," Carla stepped forward, her short-cropped hair even brighter in the dimmed light of the restaurant. "We value Irma as an employee. Maybe you could let her finish her shift and then—" "No, then," Dad cut me off. "We're celebrating my birthday, and I want my daughter to be with her family, not serving strangers." The situation was getting more and more tense. I could see some customers squirming uncomfortably in their seats, others blatantly eavesdropping. It was a nightmare. My parents were making a scene in my own restaurant without me realizing it. Dad," I tried to speak as calmly as possible. "I can't just leave. I have responsibilities." "Duties?" he snorted. "To who? To these?" He put his hand around the staff. "Oh, come on, Irma. You can get a better job if you try. My mother and I always said—" "I know what you always said," I interrupted him, feeling something inside me break. "All my life you've done nothing but tell me what a loser I am and how I disappoint everyone." "That's not true." Mother was outraged. "We've always supported you. We just wanted you to realize your potential and not serving hors d'oeuvres or washing dishes." "You have no idea what I do here," I said quietly. "And we don't want to know." Dad pounded on the table again. "It's a demeaning job, period. Now let's go." He grabbed my elbow and I instinctively jerked my arm away. The movement was so sharp that I hit the tray of drinks next to me, which fell to the floor with a clatter. The sound of shattered glass echoed throughout the room. "See what you've done?" Mother hissed. "It's always like this. You never think of the consequences." I felt tears coming to my eyes, but I held them back. Not here. Not in front of everyone. Not in front of them. "Mr. and Mrs. Grin," Ivan stepped between me and my parents, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave the restaurant if you continue to cause trouble." "Trouble?" My father choked with indignation. "How dare you? We're trying to get our daughter out of this part-time job, and I'm certainly not going to pay for that kind of service." "Arthur, maybe we really should leave." Aunt Marge tried to lighten the mood. "We can talk to Irma later." "No!" Dad was adamant. "She's coming with us now." I looked at them and suddenly realized I was no longer afraid of their disappointment, their anger, their judgment. I had built a life without them, a life I was proud of, a life where I made my own decisions. "Mom, Dad," I said firmly, "I'm not going with you. I work here, and I have to finish my shift." "Irma Elizabeth Grin," Mother said my full name as she always did when she was particularly displeased. "You're choosing this part-time job over your own family, on your father's birthday?" "I'm choosing my life," I replied, "and I ask you to respect that decision." "Respect it?" My father blushed even more. "Respect that my daughter chose to serve strangers instead of being with her family? Never." He grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. "Come on, Doris. Our daughter has made her choice." My mother looked at me with such disappointment that for a moment I felt like a little girl again, who hadn't lived up to expectations. "If you don't come with us now," she said, "you may not come back. We don't want a daughter who is ashamed of her family." "I am not ashamed of my family, Mother," I replied, "but I can't go on living by your rules." "Then it is clear." My father took my mother under his arm. "Come, Doris. And you," he turned to me, "can stay here and continue to disgrace our family name." I stood there, unmoving, while they packed my things. The rest of the family stood up awkwardly, not knowing how to react. Only Tabitha gave me a sympathetic look. "And don't think I'm going to pay for that awful dinner." Dad threw one last curt remark as he headed for the exit. The steak was as tough as a sole and the service was the worst. "The bill will be paid, don't worry," I said, surprised at how calm my voice sounded. Happy birthday, Dad. I'm sorry. Ivan's voice cut through the silence, but you don't seem to understand. Irma Grin doesn't just work here. She owns this restaurant. Time seemed to stop. I saw my father's eyes widen, my mother slowly sink back into her chair. Tabitha put the phone away and raised her eyebrows in interest. What the hell is this? Mother was the first to come to her senses. Don't make it up. Our Irma can't own a restaurant. Yes, I finally found the strength to speak. It's my restaurant, Mom. It's been mine for a year and a half. Dad shook his head, his face full of disbelief. Is this some kind of joke? Or a prank? Irma, what's going on? I took a deep breath. The moment I'd been avoiding for so long had finally arrived. It was time to show my cards. No prank, Dad. The Phoenix is my property. I opened it last January. But, how? Mother looked around the room as if she was looking at it for the first time. Where did you get the money for the restaurant? You were a cashier. No. I shook my head. I was never a cashier. It was a lie to keep you out of my life. I saw my father's face gradually change color from purple to crimson. You've been lying to us all this time? He gritted his teeth. I wasn't lying, I countered. I just didn't tell the whole truth. And you never asked. All you cared about was that I didn't embarrass the family. How dare you? My mother clutched her hand to her chest. After all we've done for you. Ivan coughed tactfully. Irma, why don't we continue this conversation in your office? I nodded, grateful for his intervention. The customers at the neighboring tables were already openly watching our family drama. Good idea. Mom, Dad, please come with me. We're not going anywhere, Dad said. If this is really your restaurant, prove it. I pulled my keys out of my apron pocket with a Phoenix keychain. Here are the keys to all the rooms. I can show you property deeds, business licenses, bank statements, anything. Let's go to the office. My father reluctantly followed me, my mother after him. The rest of the family looked around, unsure of what to do. Tabitha, you can come with us, I suggested to my cousin, the only person in the family with whom I still had a warm relationship. My office was on the far side of the restaurant, a small but cozy room with a solid oak desk, bookshelves, and pictures on the walls. One wall was dedicated to my culinary diplomas and certifications from the past few years. My parents stopped awkwardly on the threshold, looking around. Tabitha walked inside and curiously started looking at the pictures. Wow, is that you at the Chicago Cooking Festival? She pointed to a picture of me standing with a medal around my neck next to a famous chef. Yes, I won second place last year. I smiled involuntarily, remembering that day. Please sit down. I pointed to the chairs in front of the table. My father remained standing with his arms folded across his chest. My mother reluctantly lowered herself into a chair, keeping her eyes on the diplomas on the wall. I'm waiting for an explanation, Father said in the tone he used to use with me when I got bad grades in school. I sat down at the table and folded my hands on the countertop, trying to sound calmer than I was. What exactly do you want to know, Dad? Everything. He waved his hand. How long have you been lying to us? Where did the money come from? How did you even think of such a gamble? I took a deep breath. It was time to tell them the truth, the whole truth I'd been hiding for so long. I never worked in a supermarket. I told you this because I knew you wouldn't approve of my real plans. And you should have, snorted the mother. The restaurant business is a crazy risk. 90% of restaurants go bankrupt in the first year. 80, Mom, I corrected. And Phoenix is one of the other 20. Where's the money coming from, Irma? My father looked at me suspiciously. Did you go into debt? Did you take out a loan? That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. I opened a desk drawer and pulled out a file of papers. It all started when I was 16, I said calmly, spreading the papers out in front of me. Remember, Dad? I got a job washing dishes at the Blue Clam? Dad frowned, trying to remember. Yeah, I think there was a restaurant like that. You worked there for a couple months. 3 years, Dad? I shook my head. I washed dishes, then I became a kitchen assistant, then an assistant chef. All that time I was saving money and studying. But you dropped out of college, Mother exclaimed. You said it wasn't your thing. Community college isn't my thing, I agreed, but the Culinary Institute of Chicago was my thing. I went there as a night student 8 years ago and graduated with honors. I pulled my diploma out of the folder and handed it to my parents. My mother took it with trembling hands. But how? We would have known. You didn't know because you weren't interested. I shrugged. I used to say I was going to a friend's house or taking extra shifts, and then I'd go to class. Then I worked in different restaurants, gaining experience. For the last 3 years before Phoenix opened, I was sous chef at Marcus Werner's Silver Spoon. Werner's. For the first time, there was something resembling respect in my father's voice. Even he had heard of this famous restaurant 40 minutes from St. Joseph's. Yes, I nodded. That's where I met Wilfred, our current chef. When I decided to open my own restaurant, he agreed to join me. But the money, Mother still couldn't believe it. Even with a good sous chef's salary, it's impossible to save up for a restaurant. I took another document out of the folder. Do you remember Grandma Edna? Mom's mom? Of course, Dad frowned. What's she got to do with it? And she left me an inheritance. I handed him a copy of the will. $20,000. I invested it in technology stocks on Tabitha's advice. Tabitha nodded with a smile. I told you it would be a good investment, Uncle Arthur. Irma tripled her capital in 4 years. And you knew? Mother turned to her niece. All these years you knew and kept silent? It wasn't my secret. Tabitha shrugged. I just helped my cousin with her investment portfolio. I continued. A small business loan and a grant for women entrepreneurs from the St. Joseph City Council added to my savings and investments. I found this space when the previous restaurant went bankrupt and was able to buy it at a very favorable price. I handed my parents the purchase papers and the business plan that I had spent months writing, thinking of every detail. Everything is official, legal, and transparent. Phoenix broke even in 10 months, and now it's making a steady profit. Her mother stared at the documents spread out before her, her face a mixture of disbelief and... What was it? Was it pride? Why didn't you tell us? She asked quietly. All this time, we could have helped. Help? I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. With what, Mom? Advice not to take risks? Reminding me that I'm going to fail anyway? Or comparisons to the McBride daughter? It's not fair, Irma. Father shook his head. We've always wanted the best for you. The best by your standards, I tried to say calmly. But this is my life, and I've chosen my path. And you know what? I have no regrets. My mother ran her hand over the diplomas, certificates, and awards on the wall. All this time, did you really do this on your own? Yes, I nodded. With the help of friends and coworkers who believed in me. Wilfred, Ivan, Carla, they've been with me since the beginning. We're like a family. Family, my father echoed. What about us? What do you think we are? I looked at him. The man I'd been afraid to disappoint all my life. The man whose approval I'd been so desperate to win as a child. You're the people who taught me never to give up, I said softly. Even if it means going against everything you're told. There was silence. My father was staring out the window. My mother was going through papers. Tabitha was watching us with a slight smile. You needed money, Father said suddenly. Why didn't you ask us? We would have? I raised my eyebrows. Would you have given me the money to open a restaurant, Dad? After all the talk about entrepreneurship being a path to ruin? He didn't answer, and that was more eloquent than any words. The study door opened, and Wilfred's head appeared in the doorway. Irma, I'm sorry to intrude, but we've had a full house and some questions in the kitchen. I'll be right there. I nodded and turned back to my parents. I need to get back to work. You can stay and finish dinner if you want. So, everyone can stare at us after that scene? Snorted the mother. No, thank you. Wilfred can set up a table in a separate office, I suggested. It's Dad's birthday after all. We should get home. My father picked up his jacket. But before we go, I want to know one thing. Are you really proud of what you've done? Is this really what you wanted? I looked around my office, thinking about the restaurant, about my team. About the menu Wilfred and I had spent weeks creating, about the loyal customers who came back again and again. Yes, Dad, this is exactly what I wanted. And yes, I'm proud of it every day. Something flashed in his eyes, maybe understanding, maybe just tiredness. Come on, Doris. He turned to my mother. Our daughter is too busy for us. My mother rose but lingered, looking at the picture on the table, me surrounded by my team on the opening day of the Phoenix. You look happy, she said softly. I am happy, Mom. She nodded, as if accepting that but not understanding. I'll call you this weekend, I said, feeling the need to soften the situation somehow. Don't bother. My father took my mother under his arm. Obviously, you have more important things to do than family. I felt a wave of irritation rising inside me again. It's not fair, Dad. I didn't turn my back on my family. I just wanted to live my life. Your life? He turned around in the doorway. What about lying all these years? Is that part of your life, too? I wasn't lying, No, that's exactly what you've been lying about, he interrupted, his voice rising again. Every Sunday lunchtime you told tall tales about your job at the supermarket, about your promotion, about your co-workers, about your boss. It was all lies, because you never accepted my real dreams. I raised my voice, too. Ever since I was a little girl, no matter what I was passionate about, you always found a way to devalue it. Remember, Dad, how I wanted to take a cooking class in high school? And you said it was a waste of time and signed me up for math. I wanted you to have a future. He pounded his fist on the door jamb. Math gives you perspective, not what? I got up from the table. Not cooking, not the restaurant business. Look around you, Dad. This is my future. I built it on my own without your help or your approval. And you expect us to be thrilled that our daughter lied to us for years, Mother intervened. That we should jump for joy when we learn that you've been secretly studying and working, that all this time you didn't trust us enough to choose deception. I shook my head, feeling a lump rise in my throat. I don't expect excitement, Mom. I was just hoping for understanding, at least now that you can see I've succeeded. So far, Dad grimaced. The restaurant business is unstable, you know that. One day you have customers, the next day the fancy new place across the street will open up and you'll be broke. Again, no support, no faith in me. Even now, when the proof of my success was right in front of them, they saw only possible failure. I'm sure you'll be the first to say, "We warned you." I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. It's not fair, Irma. My mother pressed her lips together. We're worried about your future, that's all. My future is Phoenix. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down. And if you can't accept that, then we really have nothing more to talk about. That's good. My father turned to leave. Come on, Doris. Obviously, our daughter has made her choice. Her mother hesitated, looking at me and her father. Arthur, maybe we should... I said, let's go. He could no longer contain his anger. Let her stay with her pots and pans, if they're more important to her than her family. At that moment, the study door opened again, and Wilfred entered. I apologize for the intrusion. He glanced around the tense scene, but I think your family conversation would be more comfortable in private. Some of the guests are concerned about the noise. Wilfred, would you mind escorting my parents out? I asked, sensing that the conversation had reached an impasse. And please arrange for the rest of the guests to be transferred from their company to the small hall. Of course. He nodded. Mr. and Mrs. Grin, We'll find our own way out. His father cut him off, and, taking his mother under his arm, headed for the door. On the threshold, he turned around one last time. We'll talk about this again, Irma. It's not over. No, Dad. I shook my head. I'm afraid it is. At least the end of your control over my life. They walked away, leaving behind an oppressive silence. Tabitha, who had been watching in silence the whole time, came over and put her hand on my shoulder. You're good, she said quietly. They're just not ready to admit that you've grown up and made it on your own. I squeezed her hand gratefully. Thank you for being there for me. You're welcome, she smiled. I think I'll go see if they're making a scene in the hall. Knowing Uncle Arthur, I nodded, and Tabitha followed my parents out the door. Wilfred lingered in the doorway. "Are you all right?" he asked with genuine concern. "I will be." I forced out a smile. "Give me 5 minutes, and I'll be back in the kitchen." When he left, I sank into the chair, feeling suddenly empty and tired. It hadn't happened the way I'd imagined. For years, I'd rehearsed this moment in my head, the moment my parents would find out the truth. In my fantasies, they were surprised, maybe even shocked, but ultimately proud of me. The reality turned out to be much more bitter. I picked up a picture from my desk. The opening day of the Phoenix. Me in the center, Wilfred and Ivan on the sides, Carla and the rest of the team around me. All smiling, eyes shining with anticipation and hope. It was one of the happiest days of my life. I put the picture back up and stood up. I had a restaurant to run, customers to feed, and a team that was counting on me. The family dramas could wait. When I left the office, Ivan met me in the hallway. "Your parents are gone," he informed me. "It's pretty noisy." "I can imagine," I sighed. "Did the staff get a lot of grief?" "Nothing we couldn't handle," he shrugged. "Your father promised never to step foot in that inn again," he said. I couldn't hold back a bitter chuckle. "At least we agree on something." "Your cousin stayed," Ivan added. "She said she wanted to try the dessert and talk to you later." "Okay," I nodded. "How are things going in the kitchen?" "Wilfred's doing fine, but he'd love your help with the new seasonal menu." "Coming?" I headed toward the kitchen, trying not to think about my parents and their threat to deal with it later. Whatever it meant, I was prepared to face it with my head held high. After all, I hadn't named my restaurant Phoenix for nothing. Sometimes you have to burn to the ground to rise from the ashes stronger than before. It's been a week since that memorable Thursday. Life at the Phoenix was back to normal, except that the staff occasionally cast sympathetic glances at me. The news that their boss had had a family drama in the restaurant had spread quickly, but to my relief, no one asked too many questions. For the first 3 days, my phone was ringing off the hook with calls from my parents. I ignored them, only listening to the voicemails. My father demanded a serious talk. My mother went from accusations to trying to induce guilt. "We always wanted what was best. You have to understand our feelings. After all we've done for you." A typical set of phrases I've heard my whole life. On the 4th day, the tactics changed. My mother left a message raving about how she had bragged about her successful restaurateur daughter to her neighbor Eleanor. Eleanor, whose son worked as an ordinary insurance agent, just turned green with envy. The father mentioned in his message that he had told colleagues at the post office about my business, and everyone was impressed. I deleted those messages without calling back. For years, they've shamed me for my hobbies, and now suddenly they think it's okay to use my success as a bargaining chip in the never-ending game of whose kid is better. No, thank you. Another call from Mom. Ivan held out his phone to me as I checked the new batch of wine in the cellar. "Tell her I'm busy." I didn't even look up from the list. "That's what I said. The last 4 times," he sighed. "She doesn't give up." "Perseverance is a family trait," I smiled weakly. "Thank you, Ivan." He paused, as if he wanted to add something, but changed his mind and walked back into the hall. I appreciated his tact. In fact, the entire Phoenix team was surprisingly understanding. No one interfered with advice. No one judged or insisted on reconciliation. Unlike the 2 official psychologists I'd seen in the past, on the 5th day, I got a message from Tabitha. "Aunt Doris called 3 times, asking for your home address. I wouldn't give it. Then she tried to find out what the most popular dishes on your menu are. I think she's planning a visit to the Phoenix, just so you're ready. Love you, hang in there." I thanked my cousin for the warning, but somehow I didn't believe my mother would actually decide to come. After all, her pride was hurt as much as mine. That evening, I had a meeting with a supplier of organic vegetables from a local farm. We were discussing expanding the selection for the fall menu when my phone vibrated with a new message. The number was unfamiliar. "Dear Irma, this is Helena McBride, Veronica's mom. Your mom gave me your number. She's so proud of your restaurant. My husband Veronica and I would like to make a reservation for this Friday. Veronica recently got a promotion and wants to celebrate. I hope you can accommodate us. P.S. Your mom mentioned that you make an amazing tiramisu. I stared at the screen, not believing my eyes. The McBride family were the very people I'd been berated by my entire life. Veronica was already class president in high school. Veronica got a scholarship to Cornell. Veronica got her doctorate. And now they want to come to my restaurant because my mother is bragging about it? I didn't respond to the message, figuring Ivan would handle the reservations as usual. Funny how quickly my parents went from being ashamed of my waitressing job to being proud of my successful restaurateur daughter. It was as if all their anger wasn't because of my lies, but because my job didn't seem prestigious enough to them. On the 8th day after the incident, a normal Friday, I was doing financial accounting in my office when there was a knock on the door. Irma. Carla peeked inside, her short red hair more disheveled than usual, a sure sign of stress. Your mom's here. She says she just stopped by for lunch. I set my pen aside and leaned back in my chair. Alone? Yeah, Carla faltered. She asked for a table in the main dining room, but I thought maybe... Put her at my usual table by the window, I decided, and tell her I'll be there in 10 minutes. When Carla left, I allowed myself a moment of weakness. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, exhaled slowly. I knew this conversation was inevitable, but I was hoping to delay it a little longer. Maybe it was better to end it all at once without further ado. I checked my reflection in the small mirror on the wall. Dark hair in a ponytail, light makeup, white shirt and black pants. My usual work look. Nothing special, but nothing to pick on either. Though my mother would probably find it too strict, not feminine enough, not age-appropriate. She always did. My table was in the corner of the main room, next to a large window overlooking the main street of St. Joseph's. From here, I could watch the staff at work and enjoy the view at the same time. My mother was already sitting there, studying the menu as intently as if she were studying for an exam. "Hello, Mother." I walked over and sat down across from her. She flinched, though she must have seen me walking across the room. "Irma, you scared me." "I'm sorry. I didn't make it clear that she'd asked for this meeting. Carla said you wanted to have lunch?" "Yes." She put the menu down. "I thought I'd finally try some of the dishes everyone's been raving about." "All of them?" I raised an eyebrow. "Well, I told a few friends about your restaurant." She awkwardly adjusted the collar of her blouse, a gesture I remembered from my childhood. My mother always rubbed the collar when she was nervous or lying. Helena McBride said she'd be sure to stop by with her family. They were just celebrating Veronica's promotion? Yeah, she texted me. I nodded without going into details. My mother glowed. She did? What did you say? Nothing. Ivan's in the middle of making reservations. Her face drooped slightly. Oh, I see. We stopped talking. At the next table, a young couple was enthusiastically discussing their upcoming wedding. At the bar, two businessmen were quietly arguing over glasses of whiskey. Just a normal day at the Phoenix. "What are you going to order?" I asked, breaking the awkward pause. "Yeah, I don't know." She picked up the menu again. "What would you recommend?" "You always liked salmon," I shrugged. "Our chef makes it with a lime and mint sauce. It's a very light dish." "Sounds good," she nodded. "And what about this tiramisu? I hear it's very special." "From who?" I couldn't help a slight chuckle. "You just said it was your first time here." My mother blushed. "Yeah, maybe asked about your restaurant from people." "What people, Mom?" "The neighbors," she sighed. "The Petersons. Their daughter came here with her fiancé for their anniversary, said the tiramisu was divine." I nodded to a waitress who was passing by. "Sally, would you please bring the salmon with lime and mint sauce for my mom, and water with lemon?" "Sure thing, Irma." Sally smiled and walked away. "You didn't ask if I wanted anything else," my mother remarked. "You've been on a diet for the last 20 years, I shrugged. "And you always drink water with lemon." She looked surprised, as if she hadn't expected me to remember such details. "And you? Won't you keep me company?" "I've already had lunch, and I have a lot of work to do." My mother pressed her lips together, another familiar gesture. She always did that when I didn't live up to her expectations. "Of course she did. Work is more important." I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I didn't want another conflict. Mom, let's be honest. You didn't just come here for lunch. What do you want? She blinked confusedly, as if she hadn't expected a direct question. Wanted to see you. After the other night, my father and I were worried. Worried? I couldn't hold back an incredulous chuckle. Dad said I'd chosen my path, and that it was the end. And now you're worried? He's overreacting. Mother lowered her eyes. You know your father. He has a temper. But he didn't mean... He meant exactly what he said. I shook my head. And you know what? I agree with him. This really is the end. The end of your control over my life. Mother looked like I'd hit her. Control? Irma, we never controlled you. We just wanted to keep you from making mistakes. To guide you. To guide you down the path you thought was right. I finished for her. Not paying attention to what I wanted. We're your parents. She raised her voice, then, looking around, continued more quietly. It's our responsibility to protect you, even from your own rash decisions. I'm 27, Mom. I tried to speak calmly. I've been making my own decisions for a long time, and as you can see, I'm doing a pretty good job of it. Sally brought salmon and water. My mother thanked her automatically, not taking her eyes off me. Yes, you're doing well now, she agreed, as the waitress walked away. But can you imagine what your father and I have been going through all these years? Thinking you were barely making ends meet on a cashier's salary? Did you offer to help? I raised an eyebrow. No, you only criticized me for not being as successful as the McBride's daughter. We just wanted to motivate you. By humiliating you? I shook my head. Great motivation, I'll give you that. Mother cut into the salmon but didn't eat it. Her hands were trembling slightly. That's not why I came here, Irma. Not to fight. Why did you? She looked up at me, and I was surprised to see tears in her eyes. I want to be a part of your life, she said quietly. I want to know my daughter, the real one. I looked at the woman across from me. Still beautiful despite her age, with perfect hair and manicures, wearing a neat sand-colored suit. My mother, who always knew how things should be right, who taught me that appearance and reputation came first, who was never satisfied with what I did or who I was. Why now, Mom? I asked. Why not 10 years ago when I tried to tell you about my dream? Not 5 years ago when I was in culinary school? Not 2 years ago when I was saving up for my restaurant? She looked away, and I saw the answer in that gesture. Because I'm successful now, I continued. Now I have something to brag about to the McBrides and the Petersons. Now I'm good enough at last. It's not fair, Irma. No, Mother. What's unfair is when parents don't love their children but their accomplishments, when their pride depends not on whether the child is happy, but on whether they can show off to the neighbors. The mother was silent, mechanically chopping pieces of salmon on her fork, but not bringing them to her mouth. I don't hold a grudge, I said more gently. I do. You did what you thought was right, but I can't go back to the relationship we had. I don't want to feel like I'm not good enough again. We never considered you... She started. Mom, I interrupted her. Let's not lie to each other. At least for now. She put down her fork without touching her food. What do you suggest? I wondered. Cut all ties? Pretend it never happened? Go back to Sunday dinners full of awkward silences and hidden recriminations? I propose honesty, I said at last. No expectations or pretenses. We can maintain a polite relationship, call each other once in a while, maybe see each other at Christmas or Thanksgiving. That's it? She looked disappointed. For now, yes, I nodded. I need time, Mom, and space, without the constant pressure and comparisons. And your father? She asked quietly. He's very hurt. His pride is hurt, I corrected her. He thinks I betrayed him by choosing my own path instead of the one he had planned for me. But that's his problem, not mine. My mother looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Maybe she did. Maybe she finally saw not the daughter she'd been trying to mold, but the real me. You've changed, she said thoughtfully. I've grown, I corrected her. And learned to appreciate yourself, even if you didn't. She flinched, as if from a slap. We love you, Irma. In our own way, but we love you. I know, I softened. And I love you too. But love doesn't have to come with conditions. We were silent. Outside the window, a school bus filled with noisy children drove by. The sun reflected in the storefronts across the street, creating warm reflections on the tables and faces of customers. "The salmon will get cold," I remarked. My mother looked down at her plate, as if she'd just remembered the food. "Yes, of course." She made a few mechanical movements, tasting the dish. Her face brightened slightly. "It's very good," she admitted. "The sauce is unusual." "Thank you." I smiled involuntarily. "I've been working on the recipe for months." "You make it yourself?" She looked surprised. "I thought you had a chef." "Wilfred is the chef." I nodded. "But we work on the menu together. I'm not just an owner, Mom. I love to cook. I always have." "I didn't know." She looked confused. "I mean, I knew you liked to mess around in the kitchen, but I thought it was just a hobby." "Because you never asked." I shrugged. "You were so busy shaping my future that you forgot to find out what I wanted." Mother finished the salmon in silence. I didn't rush her, letting her digest not only the food, but also our conversation. "Are you really happy here?" she finally asked, putting the utensils away. "In this restaurant?" "Yes." I didn't hesitate for a second. "This is my place. My calling." She nodded, as if taking that into consideration. "Your father's going to be a hard nut to crack," she said after a pause. "You know how stubborn he is." "I know," I smiled. I wondered who I was like. A faint smile touched her lips, a rare gesture for a woman who always watched her facial expressions for fear of wrinkles. "All right," she straightened, becoming again the Doris grin I'd known all my life, collected, in control of her emotions. "I'll talk to him. I can't promise miracles, but—" "Don't," I shook my head. "Let him decide for himself. If he wants to get back together, he knows where to find me." My mother looked uncertain, but she didn't argue. Can I come here sometimes? For lunch?" she asked, and there was a strange timidity in her voice. "Of course," I nodded. "Phoenix is open to everyone, and if you want, I can show you the kitchen next time, so you can get a better idea of what I do." Mother paused, then nodded. "I'd like that." She reached for her wallet, but I stopped her with a gesture. "It's on the house." "No, I insist." She pulled out a credit card. "I want to pay, like a regular customer." I called Sally and asked her to bring the bill. When it was paid, my mother stood up, fixing her hair, another familiar gesture. "Thank you for lunch," she said formally, as if we'd just met. "It was delicious." "You're welcome." I stood up too. "You should try the tiramisu next time. It's really special." She nodded, then took a hesitant step forward and hugged me awkwardly. I froze in surprise. My mother and I rarely hugged, even as children. "I'm proud of you, Irma," she whispered. "I really am." I didn't answer, but I squeezed her shoulders lightly before pulling away. I wanted to believe her, but years of mistrust and disappointment don't disappear after one conversation. "See you later, Mom." I walked her to the door. When she left, I went back to my table and sat there for a while, staring out the window at the busy street. The conversation left a strange aftertaste, not bitterness, not triumph, but something in between, a calm acceptance of the situation. I didn't know how the story with my parents would end, whether we would ever be able to build a truly healthy relationship or remain polite strangers bound only by blood. But for the first time in a long time, I felt free of their expectations, their disappointment, their control. "Is everything all right?" Wilfred came to the table, holding a folder with sketches of the new menu. "Yeah," I smiled at him. "Just family stuff." "How'd it go?" He nodded toward the door where my mother had disappeared. "Not bad," I shrugged. "Better than I'd expected." Wilfred nodded understandingly, not asking for details. "We're booked for the wedding reception next Saturday," he said, changing the subject. 50 people. We need to discuss the menu." "Of course." I got up from the table, relieved to get back to business as usual. "Let's go to the kitchen and see what we have to offer." It was a busy Friday night at the Phoenix, as usual. I helped in the kitchen, chatted with regular customers, and discussed next week's wine shipments with Ivan. A normal workday filled with small worries, decisions, successes, and failures. By closing time, as the last customers left and the staff finished cleaning up, I stood at the bar, summarizing the day with Carla. "Good day," she was going over the sales report. 20% more than last Friday. "Great," I nodded. "The new seasonal menu is attracting customers." "And the rumors?" Carla winked. "About a restaurant owned by a local girl who created everything from scratch. People love stories like that." I smiled, remembering all the obstacles I'd had to overcome to get to this point. The skepticism of the bank, the doubts of the suppliers, the uncertainty of my own abilities, and of course the constant voice of my parents in my head telling me I couldn't do it. "Hey, everybody!" Ivan came out of the kitchen with an open bottle of champagne and glasses. "It's our anniversary!" "What anniversary?" I frowned, trying to remember. "Exactly 1 year ago, we sold out all the tables for dinner for the first time." He started pouring champagne. "Remember how scared we were that we wouldn't make it?" I remembered. The panic in the kitchen, the understaffing, my own despair when it looked like the whole project was about to collapse. "And we did," Wilfred trailed off, wiping his hands with a towel. "Thanks to our fearless leader." He raised his glass toward me, and the others followed suit. "To the Phoenix," Ivan said, "and to Irma, who never gives up." "To Phoenix," the others said. I looked at them. My team, my real family. People who believed in me from the beginning, who saw my weaknesses and strengths, who valued me not for my accomplishments but simply for what I was. "To all of us," I raised my glass. "We're doing this together." The champagne sparkled in the glasses, reflecting the light of the dimmed lamps. Outside the window, the evening St. Joseph was alive with people rushing home or to the bars, young people going out for a nightcap, couples holding hands. I took a sip and felt the bubbles tickle my throat. Strangely, the conversation with my mother hadn't left the heaviness I'd expected. Instead of bitterness or resentment, I felt only a quiet confidence in the rightness of my choices. We might never become truly close to my parents, but now that all the cards were revealed, we had a chance for an honest relationship. No pretense, no inflated expectations, no disappointments. I no longer needed their approval to feel accomplished. The Phoenix and the people around me were what mattered. Here, among the smells of spices and clinking glasses, among laughter and quiet conversations, I finally felt at home.